So I've been getting this question a lot, and people are asking for a bookshelf tour where I go over all of the books. I currently cannot do that at the moment for reasons of the camera being too shaky, most likely, but also time constraints. It would probably take me like 45 minutes, maybe 30 to film it all. And I would prefer to just continue doing the library tours. As a compromise, I will instead make a video talking about my bookshelf, and if you want to see the specific books, then you could just go check the library tour series by category. That's much easier. And there are some specific questions that I get asked quite a lot. I think probably at least once or twice a day people ask me how many books I own, for example, so I'll try to answer some of those commonly asked questions as well. So the first question is going to be how many books, and the answer is approximately 1,500. If you follow me on Storygraph, you can see the breakdown of those books. I believe it's like 85% nonfiction, and then the rest is fiction. I do own a couple hundred fiction books, but it's mostly nonfiction reading that I do, although I'm trying to get back into fiction. Another great question is, are my shelves organized by sections? And the answer is yes, but over time that organization is broken down for very, very good reason. In one, I ran out of space, and so I had to start overlapping categories. But two, this ladder is really dangerous to climb up. The shelf is actually much higher than you can see. It's 17 feet at its highest point. I think it's 15 feet at the shortest point. So you really do need a ladder to get to the top, and as a result, it gets kind of dangerous to climb to the top, so I've actually had to stop using some of the top shelves. So my shelves were super organized at one point, where every section had its own shelf or shelves, but over time that broke down because I had to move books, and to be honest, maintaining the organization of the shelf is a bit annoying. And I would also say dusting the shelf is extremely annoying because it's super tall. Don't get a bookshelf like this, I would say. I will probably get rid of this at some point. But as for the categories that I do have, I have linguistics, I think a fiction category, biographies, biology, general science like physics, chemistry, mathematics, psychology, philosophy, politics, history, finance, law, and marketing/business. I think those are all the categories that I do have. And they're kind of all over the place because, again, for reasons of moving books, or I found that I was grabbing from one category more frequently, or I wanted the categories to be neighboring each other, and I didn't want them to be like blended. For basically, over time, they became separated and they're not actually next to each other anymore. For example, I have a psychology section that's all the way down here, when most of my psychology books were historically up there, and I have a politics section that's now up there, when usually it wasn't there before. That used to be psychology as well, but because I changed some of the books on my coffee table, I ended up putting politics books up there. Now, which section is the biggest on my shelf? I actually don't know anymore. It used to be psychology. No, I think in the very early beginning of my book collection it was philosophy. Then it moved to psychology. Now I think biology is comparable to psychology. And I think it's very possible my politics and history section overtook both biology and psychology. I think they actually might be the biggest. But if we exclude politics from history, I feel like you can't, because most political discussions go into historical discussions. So I'm just going to keep calling it politics and history. That section has become the biggest. Yeah, especially in the last 2 years, I've been reading a lot more modern history books. So that section is now the biggest on my shelf, and I think it is this, here, and there's also a bunch of politics and history books on my coffee table. Now, and someone else asked me if it takes me a really long time to find books on the shelf to read, and that will actually depend on my mood, but I do find in general, since I have so many more books, I do take longer to pick books. I actually found once I reached about 50 books, I began to take time to read books. Or not time to read books. Once I had 50 books, I began to take time to pick books to read. I took a lot of time to find me the right book to actually begin reading, because I feel like there's a bit of a truth to the more choices you have in a fixed setting like this, the longer it will take you to pick. And yeah, I feel like that's a general truism when it comes to having a lot of books, because I'm excited to read a lot of the books. And then sometimes what will happen is I will like just like browse through the shelf. And as I'm browsing through the shelf, I'll accidentally find a book that I wanted to read, say like 3 months ago. And like, oh yeah, actually I'm super excited to read that book. And so I'll have like 2 or 3 books in my hands, and I'm like, well, I don't know which one to start. And I'm really bad for actually making reading lists. In fact, this shelf, yeah, this shelf right here is a to be read list, and it has about 40 books on it. And I'm really bad at this thing where I make a reading list like this. I have a really big reading list, and then I will go and pick different books off the shelf because I'm excited about a lot of the books. It's like going to a bookstore at this point where all the books were like curated by you, and as a result, you don't get finished with your reading list. You end up reading a completely different list. So yeah, it does take me a long time to pick books off the shelf to read. Now, I would say as like a word of advice or like warning, when I got this shelf, I was very excited about getting it, right? Every book nerd is like excited about getting like a really big wooden shelf with a ladder, right? It's really cool. However, retrospectively, I would not do it. I would not do it again because it's hard to dust. And with this amount of books, you don't want to let dust accumulate because you'll get dust damage on the books. And this will probably be worth quite a bit of money when I'm 40 or 50. To the point where I might even consider taking an insurance policy out on it. Not the bookshop, but the book collection. It might be worthwhile. And I've even considered getting into like buying collectible books, in which case I would probably have to take out an insurance policy of some sort. On the books. So it makes it really cumbersome to clean your books, to keep your books clean, especially the higher shelves get a lot more dust on them, which means any books that go up there are going to be more likely to get dust damage. It's kind of annoying to have this, and again, I will probably get rid of the shelf at some point, or at least cut it in half, and probably put more shelves around the house as opposed to having one massive shelf. It makes it harder to clean. So I wouldn't, yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. It's very awe-inspiring, and it's great, but I wouldn't recommend you get something like this. Avoid any bookshelf that has a ladder. So if I missed any questions, just ask me in the comment section. I will try to answer them. And I know you guys probably want to see the actual books up close. The best I can do for you right now is the library tours, and then I will probably buy a camera that is more easy to hold, and maybe figure out a way to actually film all of the books where it won't take 45 minutes or 30 minutes. Because even if I did 30 seconds on each shelf right now, the video would still add up to 22 minutes. And that's just for the shelf. That's not including the other books that I have laying around the house. So I'll figure something out in the future. But with that being said, bye bye.